When you're first beginning to code, you may not really need functions because all your code that you write is short and simple and basic. But as you move forward, you'll be writing longer scripts and you'll want certain things to happen at certain times or in response to certain user events, such as when the user clicks something on a web page. And then your code is longer and you need to bundle it up into little packages and then run it depending on what has happened on your page or in your app. So the bundles are functions. And confusingly, JavaScript has at least 3 different ways to write functions, possibly more. So I've started with one here, and it uses the keyword function, and then a name of a function. It can be anything. And in this case, we pass in 2 arguments, meaning we have 2 parameters in this function definition. And within the function, we have a set of instructions. This can be 1 line, many lines. There's got to be something in there or there's no reason for a function. These are optional. The parameters, it doesn't have to have any. And returns are also optional, and usually there's just 1 at the end, but in this case there are 2. So how do we call a function? To call it, we use its name, and then if it requires parameters, we have to give it values. So in this case, the values could be 2 numbers. That would work. And when we press return, this function will be executed. And if something was returned from the function, that's what we see. So in this case, we put in 10 and 6. According to the instructions, 6 was subtracted from 10, and the result of that is what was returned, so 4. Just one more example with this particular function. So if I called it again, but I did it the other way, I put something small here and something large here, right? Then it's going to subtract the smaller one from the larger one. So it's simple. This is not really a practical function for anything you really want to do, but this is how we learn functions. I want to show you that this function will run exactly the same way if I use one of the other methods of writing a function. So one way to write the function is to write const equal. Okay, so const is a keyword. Other name is my variable name. And then I put in the word function, my parameters, which can be the same as before, because parameters are local to the function. And then for the instructions, I can put all these same things, same exact things. So when I call this one using its name, other name, and I put in 10 and 6, as we did before, I get the same answer. And if I put in 4 and 12, same answer. So while these different ways of writing, or I should say of starting a function, right? It's really only the first line of the function that is affected. So these different ways don't actually change what the function does inside, and that's the whole point of the function. Let's look at the third way of writing a function, and let me copy this so that I can paste it after we do that. Okay, the third way is, to me, less intuitive than the other ways. In fact, I like the first way on this list. But if you're learning JavaScript now, you might find this way more intuitive. You might find more tutorials and instructions use this way of doing it. Let's call this third name, right? I mean, normally you'd name your functions more logically. And we use this arrow, and then the curly braces, which are always there unless the function is exceptionally short. There's a way you can leave these out, but it has to be a really short little function. And then I just paste in the same things. And if I call it like this, 10, 6, same thing. For 12, same thing. So the way that you write the first line of the function, the top line, doesn't affect how the function works, and it does not affect how we call the function. So you can choose any of these three ways to write your functions.